Hey everybody, Scott here, Trilogy Talk. I am here with another episode of Trilogy Live. So I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes while a couple people come on. So just hang tight. I'm actually going to walk away from my desk for a minute. That light is blaring right into my eyes. All right. That is better. So I know one of the things that I want to do with this podcast, and I hope to have it fixed by next week, is my camera. I use the camera traditionally for a lot of the videos that I'm using, but for this Trilogy Live, I've got this nice speaker. Speaking of those, the couple that are on, can you hear me fine? Let me know in the chat whether or not I'm coming through okay. But I feel like the video is a little grainy. I'd like to figure out how to use my camcorder as the actual camera, which I know is possible. I've researched it. My computer is just missing a component that I have to do. Hey, Scott. I see you on the text, and you can hear me, so that sounds good. Everything sound and look okay, Scott? All right, just kind of as a reminder, again, it's only the second episode. Hopefully, these will continue to come every week. And really the purpose of, well, I can't help you with the Cub Scouts, Scott. So Scott Quaid's on the line, messaging on the board, telling me he can hear me, but Cub Scouts are making it hard for him. So anyways, no, Max, you don't have to be named Scott to come in here, but I can't see who's here. Matter of fact, up in the upper left, it says I have one person in, but now I have two people talking. So I wish it would tell me who was actually on, but I can only tell if you're on once you comment. So, but good to see you there, Max. So Logan, what's up, Logan? So, all right, back to what I was saying is, so really one of my purposes of doing the Trilogy Live, my goal is to do it every week, but really it's just to talk. I mean, it's about, if you guys have questions about anything, it doesn't even have to be Trilogy related, but a disc golf or just something you want to talk about, that's really what I'm going to do. I've got a couple subjects that I'm going to talk about, and then people can chime in. And I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after, but I'm hoping to test it next week. But one of my really, the goals that I really want this show to be different is that I want the interaction. So hopefully my goal is to be able to make it to where I'm going to use a software to broadcast to where I can actually bring in different videos on the screen. Instead of you just seeing me, I can bring in videos, I can bring in Skype calls, and occasionally I hope to be able to get some Skype calls with some better players, but I don't want just necessarily the bigger name players. I want you guys as well. And really the goal would be, as an example, is Max. I could say, hey, Max, calling in, or I'll call you, and then we can have a conversation face-to-face via Skype about whatever we want to talk about. People can chime in on the board. I think I can even get to a point where I potentially can get 2, 3, 4 people, and we can have a discussion. When those people have to leave or the conversation's over, you guys come, go, and sometimes these Trilogy Lives might last 10, 20, 30 minutes. It could last a couple hours if we have some good conversations and my wife is not yelling at me that I'm up too late or anything like that. But so really that's kind of my goal with this, and to build the audience. But really it's about being interactive. I mean, there's a lot of good podcasts that are out there, and they talk about the same things, and same things that I'm going to talk about. But they're only interactive outside the board is the higher end players or things like that. And my goal is, as a fandom, I want from a fan to the fans. I want the fans to communicate. There's a lot of fans out there that have just as much knowledge as the top end pros. So, yeah, see, it's weird. See, over on the chat board, at least I've got, 4 people, and my upper left says I have, as far as who I have online, says I have 2 people online. So yeah, I'm not really sure how that analytics work with YouTube Live. I do know using the dashboard to where I can do more interactive stuff, my analytics get a lot more detailed. I mean, it'll show me concurrent, average watch times, all that. Doing it the way I'm doing it right now doesn't show that to me until afterwards. So, all right, guys, if any of you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of go on to my first topic here. And actually, this isn't a topic, but something that, as far as doing Trilogy Live, is this is for anybody that's on the board now, or if you watch this later on through the archives, when you watch this, feel free to answer this question in the comments. Hopefully my comments show up. Actually, last week, my comments did not show up after I posted the actual video to YouTube. Hopefully I got that fixed. But anyways, my question is when is the best time for you guys, for me to do this? Again, I want this to be interactive, and I can't do it if people can't be there. Days of the week might be harder. Wednesday, Thursdays are typically going to be my best days, but I can do it at any time. I mean, I'm at 7 p.m. Central right now. Is that a good time for everybody? 7, 8, 9? I know, like when Smashbox does it, they start at 9 o'clock, and it seems to work out pretty good for them. I know for me, I don't get to a lot of times finish it because it goes so late. But 7 o'clock could be dinner time. It could be times that you're just getting in from work, especially depending on what coast you're on or things like that. So I posted, Max, about earlier today about being live. I did not post that I am live now with the link, but I did post earlier. Give me a second. That is a good idea. I am going to share this. All right. Now I posted that. So actually a question. So when I was just typing that, I could not see myself in the video like I can now. Did I disappear for everybody else, or did you guys just watch me type a Facebook message? Thanks, Pat. Yeah, the more anybody can share or post or promote, like I said, it'll let somebody make it just bigger. And like I said, it's about the fans being with the fans. So yeah, so going back, I get distracted by watching all these different things. I got my list of things I want to talk about. I've got a screen up here. I'm reading the message board. I'm not used to just looking at myself, so that's kind of weird. Sometimes maybe I'm a little vain. I'm looking at my beard. I don't know. But going back, what is the best time for you guys, for me to do this, for us to interact, especially if any of you on the board would like to be some of those participants to interact in the future, where I can bring you on Skype and we can have a live video. Also, if you have topics that you ever want to talk about, in the future, you're welcome to message me, and we can see about settings, kind of scheduling that for a future episode too. It'll help me as far as knowing what I'm getting ready to do or prepare a little bit. So Jordan said he got notifications both on Facebook and in YouTube. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, Max. So for you, it's 5 o'clock being out on that West Coast, where it's 7 here. But I guess I'm wondering if I did it later, where that would make it a little bit earlier. But then again, the people over on the East Coast, they're at 8 o'clock right now. I don't know that you could ever really make everybody happy on the time. Again, the nice thing is that it's archived and people can follow up with it later on. So, all right. So topic number one of the things that I want to talk about and kind of get some opinions on. This is also probably going to be my Monday's podcast, where I'm going to get into it more in depth, maybe kind of combine with whatever you guys interact with and what I come up with. But discs selling out. So right now we have a lot of new discs that are coming in. It's that time of year. I talked about it last week. I've talked about it before, that a lot of new discs are coming out. The new molds for the years are coming out. And this particular year has been pretty interesting. like the Raider is an example, a lot of the team series discs that are selling out a lot faster than they have in the past. And we can relate that to marketing. The Raider's been very popular. A lot of the big name pros reviews have been putting that out there. So that's what's been causing the hype of that. I actually think the hype of everything that's been going on now and the excitement of everything that's going on now is probably the largest it's been since probably the Sheriff, as far as numbers and sheer quantity of discs that are selling. It's pretty exciting. But it made me think when I've seen some emails coming from DD saying that a disc is sold out. The Lucid X Maverick for Zach Melton sold out. The first run Raiders sold out. The SE Raiders for the buyback stores sold out before some of the buyback players or stores could get them. And it just got me to thinking, is it better for a disc to sell out where not everybody can get access to it, but because the disc sold out, it motivates the manufacturers to do more with that down the year or in future years or down the road? Or is it better to have a disc not sell out? Everybody can get it right away, but it sits on the shelf, and because it doesn't sell out, it probably won't have the excitement built behind it. The chances of a team series disc for it may not happen as much because it's not it doesn't seem as popular, even if the discs have the same popularity. Which is better, for it to sit on the shelf so everybody can get it? Where again, I think because it sits there, not as many things are going to happen. Again, team or TFR or sellout, not everybody can get it. And the people who do want it may have to pay aftermarket prices, but because it's sold out and the excitement's there, the manufacturers are more likely to or team members are more likely to take that disc. So you'll get them in different variations of plastics, TFRs, Moonshines, Sparkles, Lucid X, Fusion X, classic discs, even discs where like Robert Young and Derek Brookert and some Earl with Disc Golf Center, where they got their exclusive discs, where they're taking those popular discs and putting them out there in molds or combinations of plastics that we might not normally see. So I guess that's my question, and I'm kind of brainstorming it now with you guys. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions in the comments to what you think option is better. And then, like I said, it's probably going to be the main focus of my podcast for next week, is because it's something that's really got me thinking. It's just like, which way is better? I personally, I want to get my hands on a disc that I like, popular or not. I want to make sure that if I like it, I can get my hands on it. And like, I like air discs. I throw a lot of Air Ballista Pros, Air Trespasses. Air discs are one of those discs that don't always stay on the shelves as fast as I want them to be. But they also don't sell fast enough, or, well, the manufacturers don't always keep up with them as much. So when that disc comes out, I have to buy 5-10 of them just to be prepared for those to not be there. But again, I get super excited when you get all these new discs, like the Lucid X Convict. I love the Convict, but I love the Lucid X Convict because it's got that hair bit more overstability to it, a little fade that I like when I'm really trying to power on it, where my Convict might turn over a little bit more. I was trying to think of what else. Just blank out which new disc I've been. I can't remember which new disc I've been playing with that is the X disc. Oh, the Fusion X, Octo X Fuse. I like it. It's got a little bit more overstability and fade than the regular Fuse. Fuse, which has probably never been a super popular disc, has gained some popularity due to like Jordan Castro and Johnny McRae throwing them. But again, that popularity has caused them to sell a little bit. So, all right, going to the message board here too. Just see what you guys are saying here real quick. Yeah, Jordan is, I agree with you, Jordan. I do think it's probably has a lot to do with the social media push, Pro Tour, or the not Pro Tours, but the pros really pushing it and doing the reviews. And that might be a formula for success. It's newer. I mean, we've always seen them promote, But I know from being even on Team Latitude 64, we're encouraged to promote the discs that we like and the ones that we're going to use. Obviously, doesn't do me any good to promote a disc that I personally can't use. It doesn't mean I'm going to put it down, but they want me to promote what I'm going to throw, like the Ballista Pro. I'm really liking the Ballista Pro or the Convict, the Getaway, things like that. I do think that formula with that social media combination of the pros is huge, but I don't think that's going to happen with every disc. So. Yeah, and I think there's a difference between being scarce. So Max, when like we were talking about Discraft, Innova does it a lot too with the factory store, where they'll put out discs, they sell out, but they're very quick to fill them in. And I do think that's something they do a little differently than what the Trilogy manufacturers do. It seems like once we run out, we're out for a little bit. I'm not sure how the scheduling of that works is different, but I do know you're right. Discraft, they run out. They're very popular. People get them, but it seems like they're stocking them up fairly quickly behind them. So I don't know if that's like they have 10,000 of them, so they're putting out 2,500 now, sell out, another 2,500, sell out, and so forth. It doesn't seem like we do that though. Jim, I think I would be very happy to see an Air Convict. The Air Getaway is actually one that's just recently come out, and the Getaway is probably my ultimate new favorite disc, but I have not tried the Air Getaway yet, even though I have one in my bag. Donnie's asking how the Opto X Fuse flies. For me, it's just straighter. It's a little bit of glide, normal Opto Fuse. If I put straight, it's straight, and it's got a slow right fade for my right hand backhand. I can put the Opto X, throw just a straight, and I can get it to fade left. If I really crank on it, it's still going to turn over. But yeah, so that was one of the main things I wanted to talk about. Like, I was really curious just to kind of see what people's thoughts are. Sometimes these conversations are also about just letting the manufacturers see, again, from the fans, by the fans, for the fans, to see what they're looking for. Like I said, I really like that, the way that Innova Discraft does that, to where they run out, but very quickly they come back. And then these tour discs. So the Raider might be a little different because those are production. And right now we're the first runs that release tomorrow are already sold out by the wholesalers. So you can get those from the retailers. But in 2 weeks after that, the stock discs will come out. So that's a little bit different situation. But like the Lucidex Mavericks, those being sold out, I would hope they would fill those fairly quickly because that's good fundraising for Zach Melton. But if they don't, it makes them scarce. It makes that market go up, makes it harder. Also makes it harder to want to throw that disc just because it's hard to find. I want a disc that I can replace fairly easily. And just an FYI, we have more people already than we did all of last week. So, woo, thanks, guys. Radio Skippy's on there. He's making a comment. The Fluid Frost and Elasto Plastic were some of the best discs for me. Shame they are production. And you're right, they out of production, very good. But it kind of even goes back to what I started talking about here, were discs with popularity. If a disc doesn't sell, no matter how good they are, and they stay on the shelf, they're more likely or less likely to have something extra done with them, such as TFR, Team Series disc, or they go to the extreme and then they become out of production. Sometimes there's some overlapping, and I understand that from older molds versus newer molds. But in this case, Radio Skippy, the Fluid Frost and Elasto, that's a texture of the plastic. That's I don't really see the overlap so much there with the plastic. Those discs are really good, especially when it's really cold outside, or just grip. I typically throw with softer discs, so like I putt with a soft Judge. I typically like Fusion a little bit better because I feel that it's softer. I threw the Elasto Giant for a little bit, and I did like it for a long time, but that was kind of getting close to the end. And when I realized they weren't going to make it anymore, I just didn't want to put my heart out there, so to speak, and start to love a disc that I can't replace. But that goes to my same point of what's better, for discs to sell out fast so they keep wanting to do stuff with them, or your discs to not sell out so you can get them, but they risk going out of production, or just nothing ever cool happens with those ones. Yeah, Jordan, and again, going back, Eric has really been pushing that Raider. So I think that's what's really made those Raiders sell. But it's the same thing as Jordan Castro started throwing that fuse, and fuse sales started going up. Johnny McRae throwing the fuse and coming out with the Opto X fuse. Sometimes it only takes one person or a couple people to really promote a disc to make it popular, or to at least raise those selling numbers a little bit. Me and Derek Brooker did our podcast where we talked about underrated discs. And I know I said jokingly at the end of that video is, if you really love a disc that doesn't seem to be popular, you just need to get it into a top pro's hands. Get them to start throwing it and start promoting it. And really, I don't even know if you'd have to have a top pro do it. I suppose anybody could do it if you have the following. And just every time you post, you start saying, the Renegade does this and the Renegade does that, and start showing videos of the Renegade, and start, if you accomplish something in league, I give all my credit to the Renegade. I only say the Renegade because I love the Renegade, and I think it's a pretty unpopular disc, but it's an older disc, and even from my side, there's a chance that Renegade at some point could become out of production. And when's the last time you've seen anything on the Renegade as far as TFR? Nobody's got it as a team disc, anything like that, because it just doesn't have that popularity. So, but I do think, agree with you, Jordan, there. I mean, I think it's good on the manufacturer's part for the way they're using social media to promote those discs. And I'd have to go back further up in the comments, but someone had made the comment about it being an experiment, and I think it is. I'd be curious to see that with the success that they're having now. Like I said, I think this is the biggest success of discs since the hype and popularity of the Sheriff. But that, I think, was built differently when the Sheriff came out a couple years ago. Now we're in this, even getting into a greater social media age, that I could see these next releases coming out and just building up that hype more and more. Hopefully with that hype and that popularity also becomes more quantity of molds. If the quantity of molds don't change, but the hype does, things are going to sell out even faster. Sometimes that's good, but sometimes that also scares people away. If a disc's always super popular and they build the hype, but you can never get it, it only takes a person a couple times to be let down or disappointed by not being able to participate in that hype to move on to something else. So like I said, that can sometimes be a double-edged sword. Oh, radio. Gotcha, Skip. I gotcha. I'm going to learn these names over time, so it just take me a little bit for those who have the unique YouTube names. All right, just catching up on the board here. I am also recording this one live audio, so my audio listeners can hear it. They missed episode 1, so when I read these comments, I'm trying to read them out loud so the audio listeners have a clue of what I'm talking about instead of just answering the questions. Yeah, Jim's commenting on the board about the Claymore. We're just talking about underrated discs, and he likes it a lot. It's afraid of it becoming out of production. I threw the Claymore a lot during the Trilogy Challenge time when it first came out, and I really liked it. I haven't thrown it in a while. I loved it back then. I actually should go check it out again. Not really sure why I took it out of my bag, because again, I remember I had several of them, and I had Frost Claymores, and I really liked those. I played with them. I know I just said the Elasto Giant, but I did throw the Frost Claymore a little bit. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I'm not sure why I took it out. I think sometimes I lose one and I forget to put it back in, and I move on to other discs. I can't always say I have a rhyme or reason to why I have a certain disc in my bag. I just try not to lose discs. So, but Max, I'm very much the same. When I lose a disc, or I I find a disc, I tend to buy several, 3, 5, sometimes 10. Usually mid-ranges or putters. I buy a little bit more, and then I'll try to find the same weight, color, sometimes even foil, even though I'm not specific to color and foil, but I figured if they're the same color and foil, they were probably came off the same production run, or at least around the same time. So just in case there's any cooling or air temperature changes that would cause a disc to change or things like that. Did you guys see? So I posted on Trilogy Talk on the Facebook page. I shared it, but it came from Nate. Actually, who did that come from? It was a YouTube video, and it was talking about like the parting line height. It was a predominantly Innova video, a lot of the Innova discs, but they were talking about how a disc was domey, flat, the parting line height. For those who don't know, the parting line height is where the top and bottom meet. And typically, the higher that line is, the more overstability that disc has. So if you were to take a verdict and you put them side by side, if you look at that center line, if one is a little bit higher than the other, the one with the higher one is typically going to be more overstable. That's something I've known for a long time. I actually learned that from Gateway years ago. For those who don't know, but I left you guys for a second. I know you can see me, but I have you on my screen. So now you can see me, but I'm looking up at my monitor. I was trying to see if I can find that video, what that was called. Does anybody out there know what I'm talking about as far as, or see that video, or I shared it? Oh, so yeah, I shared it on March 30th. And it's a YouTube video on how to choose the right disc plastic. It's the complete guide to the disc golf plastic selection, but a big part of it is they're talking about the parting line height. If you haven't checked out that video, make sure you check that out. Actually, I'm gonna put it in the comments if anybody wants to check that out later on. They said it's very interesting as far as learning. I know a lot of people are trying to figure out stability, flat, domey, things like that. I think I just went on a little rabbit hole with this conversation, but I mean, flat, domey doesn't always mean more stable or less stable. I mean, some discs, domey can be more overstable, and some discs, domey can be more understable, because it's that parting line height that makes the bigger difference. World's Best Disc Golf Videos, is that the name of the YouTube channel? Best Disc Golf Discs X. That is the name of the YouTube channel. Again, still pretty interesting stuff there. But yeah, so when I worked for Dynamic Discs, for those who don't know, I actually opened the Dynamic Disc Kansas City store, and I was the manager of that store for the first 4 years, something like that. And that would always be something I would show a lot of players. And back then, before DD was really big manufacturer, and I was doing a lot more with like buzzes and rocks, and it really applies more to mid ranges. But I would show them that parting line height, and I would get people saying, "Okay, I want the most overstable of this mid ranger driver." And that's all I would do is I'd put them on the table and show it to them, and I would be able to prove that, because I'd have people come in and say, "Well, why is this destroyer less stable than this one?" And I'd put them side by side, and I could show them that parting line height. So again, if you didn't learn anything else about today, you learned more about parting line height, also known as PLH. So, all right. So a little bit further into the show, I'm going to reiterate a little bit some of the early stuff for those coming on. One of the questions I want to get answered while we're today is a little bit of help from some players is, when is the best time for me to do this podcast? Put in the comments, when's the best for you? Obviously, I can't make everybody happy. Wednesday, Thursdays work the best for me, but I'm trying to find the happy medium of the time frame. And again, if you miss it, for those who catch it later, it's always archived, and you can always communicate in the comments. And I actually keep up with them pretty good. I try to answer those questions. So as I was scrolling through my Facebook page, it wasn't a topic I'd planned to talk about, but it was a topic that I enjoyed talking about over the week when I posted it on my Facebook page. And not to detour a little bit too, but you should pay attention to the Facebook page. I like to put questions out there and just communicate about some just general things. And I always love to see people's answers. Plus, it gets me a chance for me to know you a little bit better. But Nate Perkins made a post, and he was talking about, and I'm going to read you directly what he had said, but he goes, when the basket is on the hill and you go check to see what's behind it before you putt, have you ever asked yourself why? Are you planning on missing it entirely and go down the hill? If there was no hill, you wouldn't check behind to see where the hypothetical air ball would land and roll to. And it really got me thinking. I do that all the time. I look behind the basket. It doesn't even always have to be a hill. Sometimes I'll just look and I ask myself, especially within a putting range, why do I look? I'm not intending on missing it. And one of the things I have taught myself is how to be more confident in my putts. I putt fairly hard, so I'm not worried about missing. But for some reason, I'm worried about missing out of bounds, missing down a hill. And anyways, as I was kind of scrolling through that, I saw that. I remember talking about that earlier in the week. I do agree. Some people commented on there. There are times to lay up. I mean, if you're playing for the win, you're playing very conservative. Maybe you're not confident in your putting at that time or anything like that. But for the most part, if you're wanting to make a putt, like, why do you worry about what's behind it? So anyways, a little bit of rabbit hole from there. All right. Anybody have any questions you want me to chat about? I'm kind of going back to the board here a little bit. We've been talking about discs, parting line height, the popularity of some of the new discs, the Raider, the Lucid X Maverick, why those ones are selling out, and what are the reasons behind them, which we've determined has to do with social media, has to do with the hype of some of the pros. I see Earl Young on the board. So Earl, longtime Trilogy person, Saint thrower. So those who don't know Earl is a river collector. It's probably, I don't know if you've got largest river collection, but it's pretty large river collection. And he has, I think, almost all of the Moonshine Saints misprints that were out. Earl, if you're still on there, how many rivers do you have? And how many albatross rivers do you have? So again, I'm going to do a lot of rabbit holes, I think, on this Trilogy Live thing. Albatross Rivers, for those who don't know, is a special edition disc that was given to Earl. Can probably tell me the name. I can't remember his name. Daniel something, I think. But anyways, he got a 4 on a par 6, nearly 1,100-foot hole. But at the Glass Blown Open, getting ready to come out, if you didn't hear last week, we are doing a GBO exhibit on the Tuesday of GBO. And this year, the premier exhibit is going to be the Albatross River. So we've got several Albatross Rivers that we're going to have on display. I've made this big 24 by 36 poster that we'll have on there. And then for those who can't make GBO, I'm going to put together a video similar to like I did with the Moonshine Air Judge. For those who can't be there, that'll kind of talk about the history of the Albatross River. But the Albatross River is one of those discs that have an old history, like well before the Trilogy lineup came, before DD was a manufacturer. I don't even know what the relationships between Latitude and Westside was at that time, but it was very earlier on, even in Latitude's career. So again, something people may or may not know about the Albatross River. The river is one of those discs, as we talked about, as kind of going back to even our previous conversation. River's been around a long time, very popular, but it probably doesn't get the love that a lot of discs do, and it should. And the river is, I don't know what danger the river is in as far as like an out of production kind of situation, but you don't see a ton of stuff for the river as far as extras, TFRs, or team series discs things like that. Not as much as you would think you would with the age of that disc and the popularity of that disc. I mean, they did have the River Pro with the Trilogy Challenge a few years ago, but even that disc never really seemed to take off, and that would have been a more overstable, a harder fade River. Again, just never really did a lot. So who knows what's going to happen with that, but that's again going back to what's better. Is it better for a disc to always be so popular and selling off the shelves, or is it better for your discs to have the option to get them later on, but you risk the opportunity for them to go out of production or to never have anything extra done to them? All right, going over to the board here real quick. Carl Offner. What's up, Carl? Carl saying the Rivers is number 2 trilogy disc. What's number 1, Carl? What's your number 1 trilogy disc? So we won't ask that to just Carl. Everybody who's on the board, comment to me what's your number 1 trilogy disc. You could only have the manufacturers were going to come out and said, we're going to discontinue a disc that's in your bag. What is the first disc they could say that would make you cringe, that would make you sad? Like, you're like, what am I going to do if they lost that disc? For me, I feel like at this point right now, it would be the Verdict. I can do just about anything with the Verdict. I like the Verdict. I pot with the Verdict in a win. I can make it go straight. I can turn them over. I can make them hyzer. I mean, different verdicts, but the Verdict for me is an all-around disc. I really like the Verdict. I could do a lot with the Judge too, but I feel like I could putt with just about any putter. But the mid-range, I can't. I need the Verdict. Driver-wise, the Getaway is kind of starting to become my multi-use disc, or the Convict. Kind of in between those two. I can get a lot more distance out of the Getaway, but the Getaway, I can get this turn over. I can sidearm the Getaway. I can throw it very straight with very little fade. I can put it on a hyzer and fade out. For Russell, it's the Escape. Russell, have you tried the Lucid X Escape, any of the match play ones? I actually had one of those yesterday and was playing around with it during our match play over in Liberty, Missouri at Battle Creek Disc Golf Course. And yeah, it's I was never a super big fan of the Escape. The rim was a little bit weird for me, but I did like the Lucid X Escape. It's probably not something that's still going to make my bag, but it definitely, I was able to punch on it a little bit harder and do a little bit of a headwind, and it didn't turn over nearly as much as I remember the Escapes doing. Oh, and speaking of the match play, on Monday, I have my finals for the match play. Is anybody in the match play or participating in the match play? There's a couple people that I see on the board who I've seen online on it, but I really enjoy the match play. The match play is one of my favorite things to do. So I'm trying to talk and read the board at the same time. Yeah, Russell, those Lucid Escapes aren't quite available yet unless you're doing the match play. Skip. Lupe can be good. So Skip is commenting that he's doing the match play. Well, it doesn't show it because he used the word that YouTube blocked out. But what Skip ultimately said is, I have, referring to the match play, and Lupe Esquivel kicked my bleep. I won't say it just because I don't want to. I don't know what YouTube will do from there. But YouTube seemed to not like the word he used enough that it shows it to me, but it censored it out, which I am assuming means that nobody else can see it. And it's asking if I want to show it. And I am not going to, but I figured since I said it out loud, everybody ultimately got to read it or hear it. But yeah, Skip, Lupe can be pretty good. So Isaiah's learning it from someplace. All right, so we've been talking about these different discs that are coming out. A lot of new discs. See, I was reading my Facebook post trying to find that information from you guys earlier, and I closed down my window that I was going to use to talk about what discs are upcoming. So there's a bunch of new discs that are coming out tomorrow. Several of you might have already seen them, but these are all the ones that become available online, just to kind of take over my Trilogy news section to see what everybody's excited about. But the first run, Fusion Raider, officially releases online tomorrow. I'm curious to see how many of those actually release, since the manufacturers sold out of those, so a lot of the retailers could no longer get them anymore, which makes me think if they were that popular, a lot of those retailers have had them in their stores already. So if they've had them in their stores, they very well could have sold out as well. I don't know how many retailers would sit back or hold those back for an online release when they could sell them ahead of time, unless they're an online only type of place. That's for the first run Fusion Raider. And again, another rabbit hole. So when I was out at Bad Rock Creek yesterday, I was talking about throwing the Lucid X Escape. I was also throwing the Raider. I actually went out there with the intent to do a review for the Raider. And I had thrown the prototype Raider, and another local here named Jordan Renzelman was going to do it with me. I got out there, and ultimately I just decided not to do it that day. I wasn't ready to do it since I was going to do some filming for a few other things. But I had the prototype Fusion Raider, and when I had thrown it before, I felt like it was too much disc for me. I mean, I only throw about 350 feet or so, and I wasn't able to get the distance with it, at least that day. And I tried it down in Arizona. So anyways, in Liberty, Missouri yesterday, I started throwing it, and I did feel like I got a little bit more distance. But my point to this story was the SE Raider, which is like a softer Fusion. I was able to crush that disc. I was consistently getting that further, where the Fusion, I was having to put it on kind of an anti line, get my hand into an anti angle, and get it to churn, for it to churn like that, where the SE I could throw straight, and it seemed to almost stand up a little bit and hold that line a little bit more. So for those who have been throwing the Raider, if you are only throwing about 350 or less, you don't have quite the arm for the Raider, but you want to try it out, the SE Raider, that is the one. I have not tried the first run yet, which is a Fusion Raider, and I haven't seen any other kind of Raiders outside of the prototype, the first run, and the SE. But the SE is definitely less stable. So Jim is saying how he's excited for the Vandal. And actually going back to what I was just talking about, the Raider. So in Arizona, I actually did a full review on the Raider. I just didn't like it, so that's why I never produced it. But at the same time, while I was testing that Raider in Arizona, I was testing the prototype Vandal. And that Vandal, I was actually getting about 40 to 50 feet further than the Raider. I could throw it on a hyzer, and it just stayed straight. I put it on an ante, and it carried, but still had a nice fade. If I slowed down a little bit, put a little left hyzer angle on it, it hyzered out for me. I'm with you, Jim. I'm actually pretty excited about the Vandal. When I first tested those discs, when they first came out in the early episodes of even my Trilogy Talk, the Vandal wasn't one that I talked about. I don't know if the conditions weren't right, or maybe I had too many clothes on. It didn't impress me that first time I threw it, but when I threw it there in Arizona, I really enjoyed it a lot. I've thrown it a few times since. Weather is just now finally getting back to regular play, and I just haven't tried a lot of the new stuff yet. But I know I have a list in my mind of some of the new things, and the Vandal's one that once it becomes a stock, or once these Trilogy Challenge discs come out, I want to try throwing those. I'm a big proponent of, I don't like to put discs in my bag that I can't replace easily. And like the prototype Vandal, I don't want to fall in love with it to find out that when the Trilogy Challenge ones come out, it's different. So as much as I might like that one, I'm kind of holding off before it bumps something in my bag or changes something in my game until I know that it's a disc that I'm ultimately going to like. Carl, the Trilogy Challenge discs for 2019, and I just put up registration for the Kansas City and P Hill one here earlier today. If you haven't seen it already, but is the Keystone, the TP Burst Gatekeeper. I don't remember what plastic a Keystone off the top of my head, and the Vandal. So those are the 3 discs that are in the Trilogy Challenge for 2019. Plus, you get your shirt, your mini, things like that. The Vandal, Max, the Vandal is less stable. Well, in my mind, it's less stable than the Escape. The Escape for me is harder to compare against. I feel like the Escape feels differently in my hand. When I throw the Escape well, it's very straight for me. But for some reason, it wants to stick to my hand. I tend to want to put an Anheuser angle on the Escape even when I'm trying to throw it flat. It's just one of those discs that don't feel well in my hand. The Innova Leopard was always that same way. I could throw a T-Bird just fine. The Innova Leopard, I couldn't. I don't know why, and the lips are very similar. But the Escape, the Escape is just one that doesn't fit well in my hand. So, all right. So going back to our releases, like I said, we got those first run Raiders. I'm excited to see what happens with those online. The Lucid X Convict, again, I've kind of already been saying and I love that disc. I'm a big Convict fan already, but the Lucid X added to it. The Opto X Explorer, Emerson Keith has been rocking that disc. The Zach Melton Lucid X Maverick. And so I'm going to stop right there because it's something. See, and as I do this, things just pop in my head. Going back to our whole beginning of these conversations is we're talking about like the Raider, how much it's selling because like Eric Oakley's pushing it and they're doing a bunch of reviews. You know, you've seen Danny and different people with DD who are playing rounds with just the Raider. So the hype of the Raider was pretty good. But what about like the Lucid X Maverick? The Lucid X Maverick, I don't think sold out from 2018. I think when they were doing all their markdowns going into this year before the 2019s, the Mavericks were on that list. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's sold out in 18. But in 19, it sold out. And I don't feel like the Lucid X Maverick has gotten a lot of abnormal hype, not any more than like the Fuse or the Explorer. So just kind of talking out loud more than anything, but it's kind of interesting that the Maverick sold out. And the Maverick, which is a popular disc amongst a lot of throwers, I wouldn't say is an exceptionally popular disc. I feel like the Explorer is a more popular disc. The Convict, I know struggles. It fits in a certain specific niche of type of players. And Skip, I assume you're talking about the Maverick being a great disc, and it is a great disc. I have one of the ones that we got in our match players packages from 2018. I really like it. I can't throw it exceptionally hard, but when I throw it at probably like 70%, 60, 70%, I can throw it very straight. If I need it to churn, it can. I have not tried the Lucid X Maverick, though, Skip. So going back to our releases, we got the Guard coming out this week. I've actually seen a lot of people putting with that, trying that. Also the Keystone. Keystone's been very popular. They had those Moonshine Keystones for the United States Amateur Match Play, and it seemed like a lot of people were very excited for that. I just saw Emerson just post yesterday or today looking for some of those. He's a big gatekeeper. I feel like Johnny McRae was kind of getting into the gatekeeper. Again, and if that's true, not gatekeeper, Keystone, both those guys, I'm talking putter or mid ranges, and I'm meaning to be talking about putters. The Keystone that Johnny and Emerson are both liking, and if they both stay, the hype behind that, definitely can see a hashtag Team Keystone and the popularity of that disc, which is good. The VIP Gatekeeper officially releases tomorrow. Love that disc too. For years, I've never been interested in really trying new discs. I mean, I try them for the purpose of learning and having a little bit of knowledge from it. But I've always been very much, you know what? My bag is my bag, and I do not want to change my bag. The disc really had to be something special. But I feel like this year, In the last 2 years, I mean, I got the Ballista was okay, but the Ballista Pro I really liked, the Air Ballista Pro, the Gatekeeper, the Lucidex Convict. But also coming out tomorrow is the Lucid Air Felon. I throw older Felons. I have a stock Felon and a prototype Felon. I have not tried the Air Felon. I'm not quite as excited about an Air Felon, which is surprising because two of my major discs are the Air Trespass and Air Ballista Pro. So I feel like the Air Felon should fit into that. And then the Air Getaway, which I was saying earlier, I'm pretty excited to try the Air Getaway. I have one. I just have not tried it yet. And then, of course, all the new team discs coming out. And then, so then in 2 weeks after that, I have not seen the newsletter from that yet. But I know next week, me and Derek are going down to Emporia. But one of our goals when we go down to Emporia and the disc, another new disc that I'm pretty excited about is going to be the Grady Shoe OptoX Compass. Someone else, we were talking about the Compass, and I'm really anxious to try it. I got the opportunity to feel one a few weeks back. Just feel great. I did not throw it, but I was watching it get thrown, and it was very straight. So I'm very curious to try it and see what that one is like. I'm not sure. There's two. I can't remember the other. I was trying to find my information. I think the Hybrid Warden, the AJ Risley Hybrid Warden, also releases in that next wave, and I can't remember what the third X Team Series disc is. I'm sure once I see it, it's going to slap me in the face. I was thinking that it was the Explorer, but the Explorer actually releases tomorrow. Carl's asking about the Gatekeeper compared to EMAC. For me, a Gatekeeper is more like a beat up verdict. It's very straight. I can control it a lot. I'm not as this is probably a sin. I'm not as huge a fan as the EMAC Truce. I know a lot of people are, and a lot of people love them. I tend to flip them over a little bit easier than I want to. For me, for an EMAC Truth, I have to throw slower to make them go straight. I actually like more like the early run original Truce that came out in 2013, if we're looking at the Truce. And like right now, before the Gatekeeper came out, I have a bio verdict in my bag, and it's exactly what I feel like the EMAC should have been to me. It's when I listen to people talk about the EMAC being described, it's very controllable and straight. For me and my throwing style, it doesn't quite work that way. But again, I see a lot of people that throw the EMAC the way it's intended to. Maybe it's the way it fits in my hand. But the Gatekeeper is that beat-in bio verdict. I've often joked that when I lose my bio verdict, it's like, what am I going to do? It's taken me a few years to get this beat in. And when I got that Gatekeeper and tested it, and it is one that is physically in my bag now, I throw it and I can control it. I can put it on a slow ante. I can throw it very, very straight. And I can put a hyzer left angle on it and get it to hyzer out if I need it to. But yeah, if you're watching this, Eric, I'm sorry. I promote the EMAC a lot. I've sold a lot of EMACs. I do a lot of them in my fundraisers. I know they're a very popular disc for a lot of people. It's just not every disc is for everybody, and I don't know, it just doesn't fit my hand. I can't ever get a really good release from it. But I'm still trying to remember what that third disc is coming out on the 22nd. Yeah, and maybe Max is saying that the EMAC's too sensitive, and that might be it. Maybe I'm just over releasing it, putting a little bit right angle on it. The EMACs, when I throw them the best, I'm having to put a left angle on them and get them to stand up. And I don't want to do that. I'm very much a flat thrower. So when I throw them flat, especially with any kind of power, I just get them to turn a little bit. And not crazy like a fuse or anything like that, but more than when I add a shot that I want, a straight shot that I would throw like the EMAC, it doesn't work for me. But again, my beat up bio verdict or even that Gatekeeper, I can just throw it straight. Yeah, Max, the Gatekeeper, it is slow. It doesn't have quite the glide. My verdicts actually has a little bit more glide, but I don't know. I guess I don't mind losing that little bit of distance that the glide might provide me to make sure that I'm maintaining the disc staying that straight. All right. So the only other thing that I had on my list of stuff, and really is not a ton of detail, but was Jonesboro is coming up next week. Anybody going to Jonesboro? I'm going to Jonesboro next week on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm actually going to play in the advanced men's division while I'm there. I saw in the players package the Lucid X Truth, the OG Lucid X Truth. So I am curious. Now we're talking about Truce. Like I said, I did like the original Truce, like the older 2013 Truce, a lot when they first came out. Now they just have got a value that I don't want to pay to have to replace those all the time. So I am curious there. But so I am going there and I am going to play. But my focus while I'm down there is not to play. And as a matter of fact, I've kind of told myself, depending on how I'm playing or where I'm sitting, I may or may not even finish because I really want to be there to film, to maybe do some audio interviews or some videos or do some coverage, do some stuff to promote on my Instagram account. If you don't already follow Trilogy Talk on Instagram, it's actually my favorite place to post. I like to try to come up with creative ways to display pictures if you haven't seen those already. But I did it in Vegas and Arizona as far as going there to follow them. And that's ultimately, I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm pretty excited. Play because I really just want to focus on the players, the Trilogy players, or not just all Trilogy. I want to see Paul and Eagle and see how those guys tear up that course on the This Side of Heaven. I watched those videos last year. I'm very anxious to check them out and see what they're like. But a lot of good players, 128 open players. Man, I'm scrolling down here and I don't know what the magic number is, but it looks like I would guess more than half are over 1,000 rated. The highest Trilogy rated player is Johnny McRae at 1027. And he is the 14th highest rated. And I didn't realize, I knew Johnny was up there, but I didn't realize he was the highest of all those. I mean, a lot of good players near the Trilogy: Zach Melton, AJ Risley, Emerson Keith, Chris Clemens, Grady Shue from the men's side. And then we'll see from the women here. And since Grady's there, I'm going to assume Bjerkes is there. They had some van problems. I don't know if you guys saw that. They were, I think, down in Georgia at, I don't know, they were someplace, but someone valeted, took their car. They were going underneath an overpass, like an overhang for a building. Paige made the comment that the van was too high, but the guy drove through anyways and did damage. So they were stuck where they were at trying to get their vehicle replaced. So, but looks like Grady and Paige are still on the registration list. So hopefully that means they got things going. But the all-star cast of Trilogy players and the open women, Pierce, Rebecca Cox, Bjerkes, Callie McMurran. I'm certain I'm not pronouncing her last name, but I got to meet her in Arizona. Fun girl to watch to play. So a lot of people. Missy Gannon, Cynthia Ricciotti, young girl out of Columbia, Missouri. She's an up and comer, one to watch. I'll be following her. So, and then there's so many names on here that even as team players, I have no idea who they are. I don't know how many times in Arizona or Vegas I walked by people and was like, oh, you got a team shirt on. So I should probably figure out who you were. Mike Conley, met him at the party, Trilogy team player, and I had no idea. But now he's on my Facebook. So, so going back to Jonesboro, you guys rooting for anybody? I don't know if you guys saw yesterday on Smashbox on Smashbox podcast. And if you have not, turn it off. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. But Smashbox and Disc Golf Pro Tour partnered back up. I have actually not watched that podcast just yet, but I'm assuming it's bringing back in some of the roles with Johnny V behind the controls and with Terry back out on the field. So that's super awesome for a lot of the people who are watching that media coverage for them. But since there's going to be good media coverage, who are you rooting for in Jonesboro? Doesn't have to be a Trilogy player; it could be anybody. And actually, my overall favorite player is Calvin Heimberg, Innova player. But I got a chance to play with him in USDGC on the lead card with Jomez, not lead card, feature card for Jomez. I wish it was the lead card at USDGC. I'd be out on the road with these guys. But Calvin's just a fun guy. He's one that I root for overall. Definitely always still rooting for my teammates and Trilogy and things like that. But from an overall fan of disc golf, Calvin is one I really enjoy watching. So who are you rooting for Jonesboro? So, all right. So that's on Jonesboro. We're going to slowly start transitioning out here. I'm at about the hour mark now. Or actually, I'm right at the hour. Carl, going back to the board, Carl's asking about the Trespass X. You know, Carl, I only threw it when it came out last year. I threw it a few times. I throw the Air Trespass and love it. I couldn't get behind the X, but only for the fact that it was so hard. Like I've said already that I like softer plastic. Typically, I use the Fusion, but I mean, it was the Trespass X, at least from 2018, were brick hard. And I know a lot of people loved them, and I know a lot of people in our area who love that hard plastic. I don't, so I can't give you a really good comparison for the Trespass X. Yeah, Max, I can't compare with the Suspect. Suspect's low profile is one of my hardest things on any discs or low profile discs. Those are I cannot hold low profile discs. The Pure, before Trilogy, when I was doing like the Zone, those just do not. The Bar or a Harp, I really would love the Harp. I think the Harp is a disc that I need. The Bard is the closest thing, and I don't like the Bard nearly as well as what I feel like I'm gonna like the Harp. And the Bard, I use my Verdict in those cases. So, but all right. So before we finish, we're gonna finish out here and just kind of reiterate a little bit. But so during the week, and we started last week, for those of you who don't know, but I started a Patreon account, and it's to help fundraise, but mostly so I can pay to do this. It's not so much about me to make any kind of money, but it's so I can pay just to put it out, the podcast and audio as an example cost. But like when I go to Jonesboro, it costs. The equipment for everything that I have here costs. And I really would like to I'm striving to keep doing this. But one of the ways I have to do is I have to figure out a way to monetize to some degree. And I don't want to push it down people's throats all the time. But we will talk about it. And on this Trilogy Live, each week to our Patreon subscribers or Patreon supporters, we will be doing a drawing. So even for our Patreons who are as minimal as $1 a month, get put into this weekly drawing. And as Patrick Manjaris with Custom Stacks had said in one of his posts, basically for $1 a month at minimum, you get put into 4 drawings, one each week for as little as $1 a month, and they go up ultimately as high as you want to. But again, even if multiple people give me $1 a month, that adds up, and it helps pay for all these little things that help me to continue to do what I'm doing for you guys and doing for myself. But it'll only get better at it. And obviously, if it can get to a point that it sustains itself, I would love to make it to where I could travel even more to like world championships. And I know we have other media people are out there doing it, but I like to think that the spin that I put on it, coming from a fan, I'm not presenting it as a manufacturer. I don't feel like I have to have the professionalism as a manufacturer. I don't think I'm sloppy or amateurish by any means, but I can be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more the way I think a lot of the fans would be. So anyways, this week we only had 4 people so far in the Patreon account. So this drawing, you're going to have 1 in 4 chance to get it, to win it. But again, every week, so anybody you can follow up, patreon.com/Trilogy Talk. All the support you can give is great. I love it. But this week, Custom Stacks gave this disc. It is a 175 I think 175 laser etched lucid EMAC Truth. We've been talking about the EMAC Truth, and this die is sick. Patrick Manjaris with Custom Stacks. He was our sponsor for this disc. I mean, it is just, it's sick. So, but we are going to give this away. So I am bringing up here on my computer. We're going to do random.org. And on the computer, you guys are going to just have to trust me. I know in a lot of times when you're doing raffles, you have to see all these different variations. I assure you, I am not out to screw anybody over or anything like that. So we're going to minimum 1. We have 4. And we are going to generate 1 through 4. I have my list of the 4 people. We're just going to leave them in order of their sign up. And generates number 1. Number 1, Chad Kelly. Chad, it's pretty ironic, actually, and fitting for that matter. But Chad Kelly was my first one, and he gets my first one. I assure you, it is very coincidental. But at the same time, I'm not sad about it. Very fitting. Chad has been a supporter of Trilogy Talk since day one. Yeah, I'm very glad he's gonna love it too. So, but very nice. Again, I want to thank Patrick Manjaris with Custom Stacks. He is on board for with several discs that we're going to do over the next several months. But next week, Derek Brookard with Truly Unique will be our sponsor for next week for our Patreon supporters. I will be posting that up, but he is putting up a limited edition tournament harp. I believe it's a harp. The white ones with the black stamp. So again, if you're not a supporter already, please consider supporting for as little as $1 a month to get included onto that. And as we get further into that, like I said, really, I mean, especially as I have sponsors on board, or if you're a sponsor, or you want to be a sponsor, or somebody who wants to be a sponsor, the more of those kind of things I can do. I love giving things away. I love promoting. Again, it's not about trying to build anything more than an opportunity for me to present for you. Last week, I gave away a moonshine, True Tool moonshine verdict out of my collection. Again, it's just about promoting and giving things back, a fan to the fan. So, all right, guys, anything last call? So I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate everybody who shared this out on the boards. It was our largest night as far as the amount of people coming on. The chat board was a lot more interactive than even last week, and I was pretty happy with it last week. And the best part about this week is, compared to last week, is a lot of new faces. So again, if you catch this later on, you watch it afterwards, put in the comments when you think the best time, in your opinion, for me to put this on, so I can try to fine tune the best time to do this. But for right now, it's probably going to be Wednesday or Thursday until I can come up with a set date. Like next week, I leave Thursday morning, so I either have to do this Wednesday night, which I don't want to say I have to do it. I want to do this either Wednesday night, or I may even do it Thursday from Arkansas. I just don't know what's all going on in Arkansas yet, and how I'm doing that. Also, I don't know what my internet connection is and where I'm staying or that kind of stuff. So all right, guys, Scott here with Trilogy Talk. Keep sharing the Trilogy love with the world. See ya.